Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Once again, you're looking at various views provided by the Russian Federal Space Agency, looking at the Progress vehicle that is mated, enshrouded inside the nose fairing that you're looking at there at the top of the three-stage Soyuz booster that is on the pad at Site 31 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Again, a beautiful spring afternoon in Baikonur, where it is just about 1 p.m. Baikonur time. As we approach the 10-minute mark in the countdown, 2 minutes away from the command for the key to start. This involves a launch engineer conductor in the blockhouse at Baikonur, rotating a special key that initiates a ground launch sequencer for the final minutes of the countdown for the Soyuz booster vehicle. And a good view of the flame trench underneath the launch pad at Site 31 at Baikonur. You can see the venting of liquid oxygen from the first stage of the Soyuz. Everything in order as we approach the 9-minute mark in the countdown. Countdown now proceeding inside 8 minutes. Launch engineers at Baikonur now standing by to issue the commands to initiate the ground launch sequencer that will have control of the final minutes of the countdown for the launch of the Progress 59 cargo ship and more than 3 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the residents on board the International Space Station. The Progress 59 is reported to be on autonomous power now. Everything proceeding very well. T-minus 6 minutes, 45 seconds until launch. T-minus 6 minutes and counting. The International Space Station now flying over the Caspian Sea. Will be flying directly over the Baikonur Cosmodrome about 2.5 minutes from now. At the Baikonur Cosmodrome, launch engineers report the range is clear and that the Soyuz booster is ready to begin its journey. T-minus 4 minutes, 35 seconds and counting. Strip chart recorders in the Launch Control Center in Baikonur have been activated, and telemetry from the launch vehicle is now being recorded. Also, the purging of fuel lines and other elements of the rocket's engines are being purged with nitrogen to fireproof them by removing vapors of fuel and oxidizer from the base of the three-stage Soyuz booster. T-minus 4 minutes and counting. T-minus 3 minutes and counting. Standing by for the pressurization of the fuel and oxidizer tanks. The pressurization of these tanks optimizes fuel flow and provides structural rigidity to the launch vehicle as it sits vertical on the launch pad. A great view of the flame trench at Site 31 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. The International Space Station is now flying directly over the launch site. T-minus 2 minutes and counting. The fuel and oxidizer tanks now have been pressurized. All systems in great shape as we approach the 1.5 minute mark in the countdown, at which point the ground propellant feed will be terminated. T-minus 1 minute and counting. The Soyuz booster is now on internal power, and auto sequence start has been initiated. T-minus 20 seconds and counting. The launch command has been issued. The umbilicals have been retracted. We have main engine start. Turbo pumps now up to flight speed. Engines at maximum start and liftoff. Liftoff of the ISS Progress 59 cargo ship on a fast-track journey to the International Space Station. "25 seconds into the flight. Good roll, pitch, and yaw program. All engines are reported to be functioning normally. All structural parameters are reported to be in good shape. The chase has begun to reach the International Space Station 52 seconds into the flight. Launch time confirmed at 2:09 and 50 seconds a.m. Central Time, 1:09 and 50 seconds p.m. at Baikonur. Now the vehicle passing through maximum dynamic pressure, 1 minute 15 seconds into the flight. Roll, pitch, and yaw, all structural parameters reported normal from the blockhouse at Baikonur. All control systems are reported operating normally. We will be expecting first stage separation of the 4 strap-on boosters at about the 1 minute 58 second mark into the flight, some 10 seconds from now. First stage separation is confirmed. The Soyuz booster now 30 miles in altitude, 73 miles downrange from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Everything proceeding normally at the 2 minute 25 second mark into the flight. Standing by for the jettisoning of the launch shroud. Second stage engine functioning normally. All control systems reported operating normally. 3 minutes 5 seconds into the flight. Good stabilization on the vehicle. All control system parameters are reported in great shape at as we approach the 4 minute mark into the flight. The second stage will shut down and separate at the 4-minute 47-second mark into the Progress's journey to its preliminary orbit. Second stage engine continuing to operate normally. A perfect trajectory so far for the Soyuz booster, carrying the Progress resupply ship to its preliminary orbit. All control system parameters are reported to be operating normally on the Soyuz booster's second stage as we stand by for second stage shutdown and separation. Second 104 miles in altitude, 179 stage separation confirmed. The Soyuz booster now 104 miles in altitude, 179 miles downrange from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. At the time of launch, the International Space Station, 104 miles in altitude, 179 border, having passed directly over the launch site some 2.5 minutes before liftoff. 5 minutes, 40 seconds into the flight, everything proceeding normally. The third stage engine performing normally. Control system parameters are normal. You're looking at a live view of the Russian flight control room at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov outside Moscow. They actually will take over control of the flight of the Progress to the International Space Station at the time of spacecraft separation. Two and a half minutes of powered flight remaining, everything proceeding normally for the Progress 59. All control system parameters are reported nominal by the launch engineering team at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Seven minutes into the flight. The third stage of the Soyuz booster providing a good roll, pitch, and yaw control as the Progress 59 is now just about 1 minute and 15 seconds away from separation and the entrance into its preliminary orbit, the chase to reach the International Space Station underway. At the time of orbital insertion, the International Space Station will be 2,300 miles ahead of the Progress 59. A series of pre-programmed engine firings will increase the Progress's altitude and begin the closure on the International Space Station for its automated docking to the Pirs docking compartment at 8:07 a.m. Central Time this morning. Approaching the 8.5-minute mark into the flight. All of the Progress's systems, all of the third stage systems on the Soyuz booster functioning normally as we stand by for third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation. And we have third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation. Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov standing by for telemetry to confirm solar array deploy and navigational antenna deployment. This is Mission Control Houston. Launch occurred on time at 2:09 and 50 seconds a.m. Central Time. We are still standing by for telemetry acquisition from the Progress 59 to confirm solar array and appendage deploy. This is Mission Control Houston. Telemetry is now being received at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov, indicating spacecraft separation occurred on time. Solar array deployment occurred. We are still standing by for further telemetry to confirm the deployment of the Corps' automated rendezvous antennas. So telemetry has been a bit sporadic as the Progress 59 entered its preliminary orbit. Commands are being issued from the Russian Mission Control Center to the Progress to process telemetry over sea-based tracking ships. Once again, the last indication was from telemetry received from Korolyov and the Russian flight control team was that the solar arrays had deployed properly. We're still awaiting confirmation, however, about the deployment of the Corps' automated rendezvous antennas.
Hi, I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, and you're watching NASA TV. Is it finally in HD? Did they guys finally do that?
This is Mission Control Houston. 19 minutes since the launch. It has been 19 minutes since the launch of the Progress 59 cargo ship from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Everything went Everything went by the book with the 8-minute 45-second ascent to its preliminary orbit. Progress separated from the third stage of the Soyuz booster. There has been some intermittent telemetry, however, received at the Russian Mission Control Center. The report was that the solar arrays did deploy. We are still awaiting confirmation, however, about the deployment of the Corps' automated rendezvous antennas. This is Mission Control Houston. 24 minutes since the launch of the Progress 59 cargo ship from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Eight minutes and 45 seconds after launch, the Progress separated from the third stage of the Soyuz booster. We did have confirmation of solar array deploy and at least several of the navigational antennas on the exterior of the Progress craft. We are still awaiting confirmation, however, of the deployment of the Corps' automated rendezvous antennas. That telemetry has not been received back at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov. This is Mission Control Houston. Russian flight controllers have informed the Russian crew members on board the International Space Station that because of the apparent inability of the full deployment of the Corps' automated rendezvous antennas, we are defaulting to a 34-orbit rendezvous, a 2-day rendezvous instead of a fast-track rendezvous to the International Space Station that would have occurred later this morning. This is a known backup capability for the Progress 59 cargo ship that occurs in the event of any systems issue that may arise during the early stages, the first several hours of flight of either a Progress or a Soyuz vehicle to the International Space Station. So once again, a confirmation has been received that we are switching to a 2-day 34-orbit rendezvous for the Progress 59 cargo ship. This will enable the Russian flight controllers to work a new rendezvous plan to compensate for the apparent inability for the full deployment of a pair of Corps' automated rendezvous antennas that would have occurred just seconds after the Progress's separation from the third stage of the Soyuz booster following its launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome earlier today. In essence, what this means is that the docking of the Progress to the Piers docking compartment at the International Space Station will now occur on Thursday morning instead of later this morning. The docking will now occur on Thursday morning at approximately 4:03 a.m. Central Time, 5:03 a.m. Eastern Time. Once again, This is Mission Control Houston. Just to recap, Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov have confirmed that due to their inability to confirm whether or not a pair of Core's automated rendezvous antennas deployed as is always the case, seconds after the Progress separates from its third stage of the Soyuz booster and begins to navigate itself in its preliminary orbit. Because telemetry could not confirm the deployment of Core's automated antennas, even though the solar arrays were confirmed to have deployed, we have defaulted to a 34-orbit, 2-day rendezvous, which is a known backup rendezvous plan for all Soyuz and Progress vehicles. This would enable the Russian flight controllers to have the time to work out a new rendezvous plan and to possibly troubleshoot any issues with the navigational system on the Progress 59 cargo ship. The current plan would call for the series of rendezvous burns to be stretched out now over a 2-day period of time. The docking now to the Piers docking compartment would occur on Thursday morning at 4:03 a.m. Central Time, 5:03 a.m. Eastern Time. We are continuing to stand by, however, for additional information from flight controllers both in Korolyov and here in Houston.
Station Houston on Space to Ground 2 regarding the 59P launch.
Go ahead, Julian.
Hey, Terry, we wanted to give you a heads up that the 59P Progress has been downloaded to a 34-orbit rendezvous. So we're going to, for the next couple of hours, we're going to be in a replanning stage for when the 59P will dock, which will be in a couple of days.
Okay, copy that. Thanks for the update, and just let us know any updates you have. Thanks.
Will do, Terry.
This is Mission Control Houston. It has been some 36 minutes now and since the launch of the Progress 59 cargo ship from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. The launch and 8-minute 45-second climb to orbit were all nominal. Everything went by the book to deliver the Progress into its preliminary orbit. However, just seconds after the Progress separated from the third stage of the Soyuz booster, there was choppy telemetry received at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov. There was an indication immediately, however, that although the solar arrays on the Progress vehicle did deploy as planned to provide electrical power for the spacecraft, the two CORS automated rendezvous antennas did not deploy as planned. The inability to deploy the two CORS automated rendezvous antennas prompted the Russian flight controllers to default the automated programming on the Progress from the 4-orbit 6-hour rendezvous that would have resulted in the Progress arriving at the International Space Station later this morning for its automated docking to the Pirs docking compartment. Instead, we have defaulted now to a 2-day 34-orbit rendezvous that is part of the nominal backup plan for all Soyuz and Progress vehicles. The 34-orbit rendezvous will enable the Russian flight controllers to conduct some troubleshooting on the two CORS automated rendezvous antennas and perhaps work up a workaround plan that would enable them to reissue commands to possibly deploy those antennas prior to the time that the Progress would arrive in the vicinity of the International Space Station. At the moment, the 2-day rendezvous plan calls now for the Progress to dock to the International Space Station's Pirs docking compartment on Thursday morning at approximately 4:03 a.m. Central Time, 5:03 a.m. Eastern Time. We will update you on all of that as we move along throughout the course of the next hours and days. This is Mission Control Houston. We are standing by for further word from the Russian flight controllers of the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov. The Progress 59 cargo vehicle carrying more than 3 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the expedition crew on board the International Space Station is in its preliminary orbit, but will not be docking to the Pirs docking compartment today. Russian flight controllers defaulting from a 4-orbit, 6-hour fast-track rendezvous that has been typically the case for Soyuz and Progress vehicles over the past couple of years. They have defaulted to a 34-orbit, 2-day rendezvous, likely due to the inability to confirm the deployment of 2 Coors automated rendezvous antennas, telemetry indicating that those 2 navigational antennas did not deploy as planned just seconds after the Progress reached its preliminary orbit, separating from the 3rd stage of the Soyuz booster. The solar arrays are deployed on the Progress, and 3 other external antennas did deploy, but 2 Coors automated rendezvous antennas did not deploy, according to telemetry received at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov. You're looking at a live view of their flight control room from a balcony camera. That resulting in a default to a backup plan that is always in the hip pocket of the Russian flight controllers to execute if required. The 2-day 34-orbit rendezvous now would result in a docking of the Progress to the Pirs docking compartment on Thursday morning at 4:03 a.m. Central Time. We, at the moment, although this is subject to change, would begin our docking coverage on Thursday morning at 3 a.m. Central Time. This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, 45 minutes following the launch of the Progress 59 cargo ship from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, Russian flight controllers have downmoded to a backup plan of a 34-orbit 2-day rendezvous to reach the International Space Station, likely due to the failure of 2 Coors automated rendezvous antennas to deploy following the Progress's insertion into its preliminary orbit. We're going to remain on the air through the time that the Progress passes over Russian ground stations some 40 minutes from now to try to obtain the latest information possible on the condition of the Progress and any further information from the Russian flight control team on the systems on board the resupply craft. Again, the default to a two-day 34-orbit rendezvous plan is a known backup capability for both Progress and manned Soyuz vehicles in the event of any systems issue that may occur in the first minutes or hours of the Progress or Soyuz's transit to the International Space Station. So the down mode to the two-day rendezvous plan now results, if all goes as planned from this point on, to a docking on Thursday morning at about 4:03 a.m. Central Time. This is Mission Control Houston. The Russian shift flight director in charge of the Progress operations is informing the flight control team here in Houston that once they pass back around Russian ground stations about 38 minutes from now, the Russian flight controllers will be able to have a better assessment they will have a much better idea about the overall condition of all of the antennas and their deployment status. The shift flight director is now indicating that the two CORS automated rendezvous antennas may have deployed. Once again, telemetry has been a bit choppy being received from the Progress back to the Russian Mission Control Center. So the telemetry that is being received back in Korolyov is very speculative at this point. So we will stand by before anything is confirmed, because we've received conflicting reports now about the potential that the two CORS automated rendezvous antennas did in fact deploy as planned. Nonetheless, because of the uncertainty over the deployment status of the navigational antennas, the Russian flight controllers elected and sent commands to the Progress vehicle to default to a two-day 34-orbit rendezvous, and we'll be standing by for further information once the Progress passes over Russian ground stations about 36 minutes from now, downloads all of its status information to the Russian flight control team in Korolyov, and we'll have a much clearer picture at that point about the status of all of the systems on the resupply vehicle. We do know that the solar arrays are out, providing a normal complement of electrical power for the spacecraft. What is a bit unclear at this point is the status of the deployment of the CORS automated rendezvous antennas and other external navigational antennas required for the rendezvous of the Progress and its eventual docking to the Piers docking compartment, which now is targeted for Thursday morning at 4:03 a.m. Central Time. This is Mission Control Houston. As we approach the 1 hour mark since the launch of Progress 59 from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Once again, the ascent to its preliminary orbit for the Progress 59 cargo ship all went very nominally. No issues during the ascent phase. At the 8-minute 45-second mark, the third stage of the Soyuz booster shut down. So the Progress resupply vehicle separated from the third stage of the Soyuz booster. At that point, there was a problem receiving telemetry. Telemetry was intermittent and choppy at the time of the scheduled deployment of the solar arrays and navigational antennas that occurs just seconds after the Progress or a Soyuz manned vehicle is deposited into its preliminary orbit. Since then, it has been ascertained and confirmed that the solar arrays did deploy on Progress. Within the last few minutes, the Russian shift flight director at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov informed the flight control team here in Houston that their telemetry indicates, not yet fully confirmed, but indicates that the two CORS automated rendezvous antennas did deploy as planned. Initially, it was indicated that they had not deployed. So there is still some doubt, and we will stand by for further word at the point at which the Progress passes back over Russian ground stations some 30 minutes from now, and the telemetry can be further analyzed by the flight control team in Korolyov. It is possible that the CORS antennas did deploy, but that a couple of other navigational antennas may not have deployed. In any event, because of the uncertainty with the telemetry problem and with the inability to confirm the deployment of those CORS antennas, the Russian flight control team elected to default from a 4-orbit, 6-hour rendezvous that would have resulted in the Progress docking to the Piers docking compartment later this morning. Now we are targeting a docking on Thursday morning at about 4:03 a.m. Central Time. The International Space Station and the 6 crew members on board, comprising the Expedition 43 crew, currently traveling over the South Atlantic, beginning a pass from southwest to northeast, just to the east of the coastline of Argentina, and soon to move into an orbital sunrise. The 6 crew members are awake. They will begin a day of activities on board the station that will include biomedical research and maintenance activities led by Station Commander Terry Virts of NASA on the right side of your screen. The crew was informed a short time ago that the Progress will not be arriving at the station today as originally planned, but rather now is downmoded to a 2-day 34-orbit rendezvous, which used to be the standard case before the Russian Federal Space Agency decided to put both the manned Soyuz vehicles and the unpiloted Progress resupply ships on a single-day launch-to-docking profile to expedite the arrival of both crew members and cargo to the international outpost. Here in the flight control room in Houston, Flight Director Jeff Radigan is currently going around the room and to the other control centers around the world, to receive any updates to scheduled activities and payload work over the next 2 days, since there now will be replanning required to accommodate a Thursday rendezvous and docking by the Progress resupply ship to the International Space Station. This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, the Progress 59 is in a safe preliminary orbit, having launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan just over an hour ago. However, conflicting information about whether or not the Corps' automated rendezvous antennas that enable an automated approach and docking for not only the Progress cargo ships, but the piloted Soyuz vehicles to the International Space Station. Conflicting information about whether or not those two Corps' automated rendezvous antennas deployed as planned. Initially, the indication was they did not. The Russian flight control team believes now that they may have, but we will not have a confirmation on the status of the Progress's vital systems for about another 25 minutes or so, at the point at which the Progress passes over Russian ground stations and more telemetry is received on the ground by the Russian flight control team at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow. Again, with the uncertainty about whether or not the Corps' automated rendezvous antennas deployed or not, the call was made early on in the Ascent phase, just after the Progress reached its preliminary orbit. About 10 minutes after reaching orbit, the Russian flight controllers called to and Anton Shkaplerov on board the International Space Station that they were defaulting to a 2-day 34-orbit rendezvous rather than the single-day rendezvous profile that has become commonplace over the past couple of years. Once again, the 34 orbit 2-day case is a backup case that is carried for every Progress or Soyuz manned launch to the International Space Station in the event of a systems issue that may occur with the spacecraft in the first minutes or hours after it reaches its preliminary orbit. As a result, the Russian Flight Control Team will assess the condition of Progress, all of its systems, determine what antennas are and are not deployed, and then come up with a further troubleshooting plan, if one is required, that will be executed over the course of the next couple of days, with rendezvous and docking to the Piers docking compartment now scheduled for Thursday morning, April 30th at 4:03 a.m. Central Time.
Good morning, Terry. How are you doing this morning?
This is Mission Control Houston. It has been 1 hour, 22 minutes since the launch of the Progress 59 cargo ship from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Launch occurring at 2:09 and 50 seconds a.m. Central Time, 1:09 and 50 seconds p.m. in Baikonur. The climb to orbit was nominal, 8 minutes and 45 seconds. To place the Progress resupply ship in its preliminary orbit, the spacecraft separated from the third stage of the Soyuz booster as planned. And then issues occurred with telemetry readings from the Progress being received at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov outside of Moscow. You're looking at a live view from a balcony camera of the ISS flight control room in Korolyov. It took several minutes to ascertain that the solar arrays deployed as planned, but initial indications were that some of the navigational antennas on the exterior of the Progress, including the Vital Core's automated rendezvous antennas, did not deploy as planned. Subsequently, Russian flight controllers, including the shift flight director in Korolyov, informed flight controllers here in Houston that the current belief is that the Core's automated antennas did deploy, but that several other antennas may not have. In any event, the net result is with the uncertainty of the telemetry not confirming navigational antenna deploy, the Russian flight controllers decided to default to a 2-day 34-orbit rendezvous plan, not enabling the Progress to move on a fast track to the space station for a docking to the Pirs docking compartment that would have occurred about 4.5 hours from now. So telemetry problems and a very muddy status of some of the other Progress systems at this point, again resulting in a default to a backup rendezvous plan, a 34-orbit 2-day rendezvous scheme that used to be the nominal plan before the Russian flight controllers decided to move to a single-day launch to docking profile for both Progress resupply vehicles and the manned Soyuz spacecraft. At the moment, pending further word, we're on a 2-day rendezvous that would result in the Progress docking to the Pirs docking compartment on Thursday morning at 4:03 a.m. Central Time, with our docking coverage beginning an hour earlier at 3 a.m. Central Time. Of course, this is subject to change. We are coming up on the passage of the Progress over Russian ground stations that will enable Russian flight controllers to reestablish telemetry with the spacecraft and to try to ascertain a further and clearer picture of the status of the Progress 59 systems. The crew on board the International Space Station is not impacted by the 2-day delay of the arrival of the Progress to the International Space Station. They have begun their workday, which will include biomedical research and maintenance work on the urine processing assembly. So we'll be standing by now to receive further word from the Russian flight controllers on the updated status of Progress systems as the spacecraft passes over Russian ground stations. The International Space Station is currently moving from southwest to northeast over Athens, Greece, having just crossed the Mediterranean. This orbital track will carry the station just to the south of Istanbul, over the Black Sea, over the western portion of Russia, and over western Kazakhstan, just to the northwest of the launch site from which the Progress lifted off 1 hour and 26 minutes ago on its flight to the International Space Station, which now has defaulted to a 2-day rendezvous and a predicted docking on Thursday morning just after 4 a.m. Central Time. This is Mission Control Houston. The Progress is now passing within range of Russian ground stations. Once again, this important pass will enable Russian flight controllers to receive a complete load of telemetry from the spacecraft and an opportunity to further ascertain the status of the Progress's systems, particularly the status of its navigational antennas and their deployment status. Telemetry expected to be processed over Russian ground stations. The Russian flight control team will have an opportunity over the course of the next several minutes to analyze the data on the status of the various systems on the Progress vehicle, and we should have much of the resupply craft at that point. Progress having defaulted to a 2-day 34-orbit rendezvous plan. The Russian flight controllers are receiving telemetry from Progress, so we'll be standing by for further reports from the flight controllers, the shift flight director at Korolyov, and other sources of information to determine the current status of the systems on the Progress 59 resupply vehicle. The Progress having defaulted to a This is Mission Control Houston. You're looking at telemetry being received from the Progress 59 cargo craft as it passes over Russian ground stations. The telemetry being analyzed by the Russian flight control team in Korolyov to determine the current status of the Progress's systems. This is Mission Control Houston. Russian flight controllers continuing to read telemetry from the Progress 59 cargo craft and have made a recommendation to activate the external television camera on the Progress in an effort to see whether or not they can survey the exterior of the craft and determining whether or not the Corps' automated rendezvous antennas or other navigational antennas did in fact deploy. The telemetry has been very, very sporadic and inconclusive since Progress reached its preliminary orbit less than 9 minutes after its launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome that occurred about an hour and 41 minutes ago. due to the sporadic telemetry that has been received from Progress 59 and inconclusive data to confirm the status of some of the Progress's systems. The Russian flight controllers, shortly after Progress arrived in its preliminary orbit, decided to default to the backup two-day rendezvous plan, which used to be the standard plan for all Soyuz and Progress vehicles, now carried as a backup plan for all Soyuz and Progress launches. So at the moment, the Progress is on a track that would result in a docking to the Pirs docking compartment on Thursday morning, just after 4 a.m. Central Time. But again, we're standing by for further word on the telemetry that is being received back at the Russian Flight Control Center in Korolyov outside Moscow, and what that telemetry is interpreted to read. Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov are looking at data. Apparently no change in the status of the telemetry data at this point, although they continue to analyze the information that was received over this latest pass over Russian ground stations. We'll stand by for further information on the status of the systems on the Progress 59 cargo craft and whether or not we have any more conclusive information regarding the deployment of the Corps' automated rendezvous antennas. The Russian flight control team reported just a moment or two ago that they have issued commands through the telemetry system on the Progress 59, but did not receive any response. So they continue to look at the telemetry system on the Progress 59 cargo craft to determine the overall health of the spacecraft's systems. The Progress is in a safe preliminary orbit. The rendezvous and docking to the International Space Station has been deferred until Thursday morning to enable the Russian flight controllers to troubleshoot whatever issues may be existing with the telemetry system on Progress that is preventing commanding to the spacecraft, which of course would be critical for its rendezvous and docking to the Pirs docking compartment.
Москва, ответим канал СГ-1 по УДОДу.
Moscow Station on Space to Ground 1.
Москва.
Moscow Station, Space to Ground 1. Go ahead, Mikhail, on Space to Ground 1. For UDOD experiment, is there a specialist? Yes, Mikhail. Just wanted to let you know that for your information, after 12:05, which in GMT terms equals 09:05, we will be activating Electron. And the specialist, actually, Mikhail, if you could ask Anton or Gennady to make sure that the ST64 current stabilizer is set to 32 amps prior to activation of Electron. How many amps? 32? That's right, we need 32. So, Nikolai, you want to talk to me about UDOD experiment after Electron is activated, or I didn't understand what you were saying? Nikolai, we confirm 32 amps. No, you can go ahead, and we just need to verify that it's at 32 amps prior to activation. And go ahead and talk to Elena. She's here to support.
This is Mission Control Houston. The ground station pass over Russian ground stations for Progress 59 concluded just a few minutes ago. Russian flight controllers sent commands once again through the telemetry system on board the spacecraft to try to receive a confirmation of the deployment of the Corps' automated rendezvous antennas and other status flags from the Progress systems, and reported that they could not again confirm the deployment of those antennas and the overall status of the Progress systems. So apparently no joy on the telemetry commanding from the Russian flight control team in Korolyov outside of Moscow to the Progress 59 cargo craft.
Is complete 90%. That's the top line above the calibration field. So I performed calibration 4 times with 5-second breaks in between each calibration. All right, Mikhail, give us a second. There's some sort of problem with the headset that the specialist is having. So let us change it to a working headset, and then we'll call you right back.
Сейчас нормально слышно?
Can you hear me okay now?
Да, вполне.
Better.
Так, то есть вы сейчас вот на пункте 6, да?
So you're in step 6 right now, performing calibration. Is that good understanding? Exactly.
Вы проводите 4.
And I actually already completed the calibration the way it's written.
А далее у вас появился экран по пункте 7.
Did you get the screen that is shown in step 7? No, I did not. Because, Elena, I have a top line on the screen that reads calibration is only performed to 90%. It's not complete. Okay, can you try to recalibrate and see what happens? And before that, you need to cancel the previous calibration session. And how do I do that? No, just go in sequence, just like you did the first 4 times. You mean in step 4? No, Mikhail. It says repeat that step, step 6.3, to be more specific, 4 times. So just do it the 5th time. Maybe that will be the charm. Okay? Got it. I'll do that now. Excellent. All right, so I started to do calibration anew, and I actually got the screen that we were waiting for in step 6, or at the end of step 6, before proceeding to step 7. So I'm on the right path. If anything else comes up, I'll let you know. Otherwise, I'll just keep going. All right, good luck, Mikhail.
This is Mission Control Houston. The report back from the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov is that there continues to be a problem uplinking commanding to the Progress 59 cargo craft that launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan just over 2 hours ago. The Progress's climb to orbit was nominal. It was placed into its preliminary orbit 8 minutes and 45 seconds after launch, separating from the third stage of the Soyuz booster as planned. However, almost immediately there was an issue with telemetry being received at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov for unknown reasons. As a result, it was inconclusive and continues to be inconclusive as to whether or not the external appendages, meaning the navigational antennas, deployed as planned. There was a confirmation that the solar arrays were deployed. However, the Corps' automated rendezvous antennas and other navigational antennas may or may not have deployed properly over the past few minutes over a ground station pass, over Russian ground stations. There were additional efforts made by the Russian flight control team to uplink commands to the spacecraft. However, the Russian flight controllers reported that they cannot, at this point, confirm whether or not those navigational antennas deployed or whether or not the fuel manifolds in the propulsion system of the Progress repressurized, as is commonly the case after the Progress spacecraft arrives on orbit to begin the burn plan to reach the International Space Station. Because of all of these issues that cropped up with the Progress after its insertion into its preliminary orbit, the decision was made to default to a 34-orbit 2-day rendezvous that would result in the Progress arriving at the International Space Station not this morning as had been planned, but rather Thursday morning for a docking to the Pirs docking compartment. But that is all dependent on whether or not the Progress has a commanding and telemetry capability and whether or not its propulsion system can receive commands to trigger the automated sequence of burns that now would be loaded into the onboard computer for a 2-day rendezvous. So we're standing by for further information on all of that.
Prior to my lunch. Is that it? Because you're using way too many words for me to understand the gist of what you're saying. Yeah, and you can do that when the specialist is here. Can I start the activity without the specialist? It would be better if you started the activity with the specialist support, because Anton was having some issues last time, so we had to stand down on completing that activity. So we want the specialist to be here in case you run into the same problems. Okay, would 11:30-ish work for you, Nikolai? That works for me. Thank you so much for being so agreeable, Gennady.
This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, the Progress 59 cargo craft in its preliminary orbit, so far unable to receive commanding from Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov, and as a result, it is inconclusive as to whether or not its navigational antennas deployed as planned, or whether the propulsion system on the spacecraft, obviously required for the pre-programmed burn plan of its thrusters to reach the International Space Station, whether those manifolds in the propulsion system repressurized as planned following the Progress's separation from the third stage of the Soyuz booster less than 9 minutes after its launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. A pass over Russian ground stations a short time ago showed no change in the telemetry issue that cropped up. As you look at a replay of the main engine ignition, now up to flight speed, of the Progress that occurred at 2:09 and 50 seconds a.m. Central Time, 1:09 and 50 seconds p.m. Baikonur time off of Site 31's launch pad at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. The climb to orbit, the ascent itself, was perfectly normal. As the three-stage Soyuz booster delivered the Progress 59 cargo craft into its preliminary orbit. That's when the issues began to crop up, with a sporadic amount of telemetry being received on the ground. on the spacecraft itself, on the progress, is what is suspect at this point because of the inability of the Russian flight control team to send commands and receive proper telemetry from the spacecraft itself. As a result of these issues, the decision was made shortly after orbital insertion for the Progress by the Russian flight controllers to default to a backup plan of a 34-orbit two-day rendezvous to reach the International Space Station on Thursday morning rather than this morning. At the moment, and again pending further determinations, the docking to the Pirs docking compartment would occur on Thursday morning at 4:03 a.m. Central Time. However, that is very, very dependent on whether or not the Progress's systems are functional in a position to provide a docking capability to the International Space Station. The Progress is loaded with 6,104 pounds of food, fuel, and supplies for the crew members on board the International Space Station, including 1,940 pounds of propellant, 110 pounds of oxygen, 926 pounds of water, and 3,128 pounds of dry cargo in the form of spare parts and scientific experiment hardware. This is Mission Control Houston. To recap once again, and we'll stand by here as our visiting vehicle officer is providing an update to our flight director, Jeff Radigan. This is Mission Control Houston. Just to resume and a recap, at the moment, the Progress 59 cargo craft carrying just over 3 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the station residents is in its preliminary orbit, having been launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan some 2 hours and 14 minutes ago. Shortly after arriving on orbit, and at the point of the Progress's separation from the third stage of the Soyuz booster, there were telemetry issues between the commanding sent from the Russian flight control team in Korolyov outside of Moscow to the spacecraft and the subsequent receipt of telemetry confirmation that would have confirmed the deployment of navigational antennas and the repressurization of the manifolds in the propulsion system of the Progress, obviously required for the thruster firings for a rendezvous to reach the International Space Station. Russian flight controllers defaulted to a backup plan instead of a fast-track 4-orbit 6-hour rendezvous that would have resulted in the Progress arriving at the space station later this morning. They went to a backup plan of a 34-orbit 2-day rendezvous plan that at the moment, pending further confirmation of the health of the spacecraft itself, would result in a docking to the International Space Station on Thursday just after 4 a.m. Central Time. However, that is entirely dependent on further updates and efforts by the Russian flight control team to revive a telemetry and commanding capability to the spacecraft. We did find out in the last few minutes that the Russian flight controllers have indicated that the orbital lifetime for the Progress is at least 3 days in orbit. It could be longer depending on tracking of the Progress and how they might resolve any telemetry and commanding issues from this point on. We are about 45 minutes or so away from the next Russian ground station pass, in which continued efforts will be made by the Russian flight controllers to send commands to the Progress 59 cargo craft. So what we will do is sign off here for the next 35 minutes, and we will be back on the air at 5 a.m. Central Time, 6 a.m. Eastern Time to monitor the pass of the Progress 59 over the Russian ground stations on the next orbit of the Earth. So at the moment, we have no rendezvous, no docking today by the Progress cargo ship to the International Space Station. That has been deferred to at least Thursday, pending further determination of the health of the cargo ship's systems and navigational antennas. We'll be back on the air at 5 Central, 6 Eastern with more information about the flight of the Progress 59 cargo craft to the International Space Station. For now, we'll sign off and we'll be back in about 35 minutes. This is Mission Control Houston.